The Federation asks why Earth has no defense grid. We consider offense the only defense. Admiral Jorax Nul adjusted his ceremonial sash for the 14th time since boarding the transport shuttle. His four-fingered hands smoothed over the intricate embroidery that detailed his 67 years of service to the Galactic Federation Safety Commission. The shuttle's viewport revealed the approaching blue-green planet, conspicuously naked to the cosmos, but without the customary shimmer of a planetary defense shield or the orbital grid pattern of defense satellites that adorned every other civilized world. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, consulting his datapad again. "Inspector Tovak, please confirm these readings. I find them most disturbing." Quell Tovak, a lanky humanoid with pale blue skin and eyes that blinked vertically, hunched over his own device. Confirmed, Admiral. Earth has precisely 0 class of defense grid installations, 0 planetary shield generators, and 0 automated countermeasure platforms. They have failed to meet even the minimum Category 7 safety requirements for Federation membership. Admiral Nul's facial ridges deepened in concern. Yet they've been members for 3 standard cycles. How did they pass the preliminary inspections? According to records, Third Secretary Vizipel interjected, her tentacle-like appendages rapidly sorting through holographic documents, and they received a temporary exemption based on, quote, unique defensive methodologies pending further review, end quote. Preposterous. Admiral Nul's voice rose an octave. There is nothing unique about planetary defense. The protocols have been standardized for 12,000 years across 17 galactic sectors. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud at Earth Orbital Station Alpha. Through the airlock windows, Admiral Nul could see a human official waiting, standing casually with none of the rigid posture expected of someone greeting a Federation inspection team. Remember, he instructed his team of 8 officials, "We are here to conduct a formal safety inspection and bring this anomalous world into compliance." Be firm but diplomatic. As the airlock cycled open, Admiral Nul straightened to his full height of nearly 7 feet, expecting the customary formal reception. Instead, the human woman stepped forward with a relaxed smile and extended her hand, a peculiar Earth greeting custom that still made Nul uncomfortable. "Captain Maya Blackwood, Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our little corner of the galaxy, Admiral. I see you've been admiring our lack of shiny force fields." Admiral Nul's mouth parts twitched in surprise at her directness. "Captain Blackwood, I am Admiral Jorax Nul, Chief Inspector of Federation Defense Standards. But this is indeed a matter of grave concern. Your planet appears to be completely vulnerable to any passing aggressor." Maya leaned against the bulkhead, gesturing toward the enormous viewport that showcased Earth rotating serenely below them, cities glittering on its night side, clouds swirling over oceans on the day side. "Looks pretty peaceful, doesn't it? Been that way for quite some time." "That is precisely what concerns me, Captain," Nul replied, his tone growing more severe. "Peace is maintained through proper defensive measures, as outlined in Federation Code 357B, subsection 42.9. Maya's smile widened. "Well, Admiral, I believe you'll find our interpretation of defensive measures quite educational. If you and your team will follow me. We've prepared a comprehensive briefing that should answer all your questions. Though I should warn you, you might want to update your definition of defense after today." Admiral Nul exchanged worried glances with his team as they followed the unusually confident human through the station corridor. Below them, Earth continued its rotation, blissfully unprotected by any visible defense system, a fact that violated every safety protocol he had dedicated his life to enforcing. What madness had these humans embraced? And more disturbing still, how had they survived? The briefing room aboard Orbital Station Alpha featured a panoramic window overlooking Earth, a design choice that Admiral Nul found highly impractical. "A tactical vulnerability," he noted, tapping the transparent material with one clawed finger. "Enemy vessels could observe your strategic planning sessions." Maya Blackwood pulled out a chair and sat down with casual disregard for protocol. Or we could just enjoy the view while we talk. Coffee, Admiral. It's a human stimulant beverage. I do not require stimulants to perform my duties, Admiral Nul replied stiffly, placing his datapad on the table with perfect precision. Captain Blackwood, perhaps you fail to grasp the severity of your situation. Allow me to elucidate. He activated a holographic display showing a complex grid of statistics, regulations, and compliance standards. The blue light cast eerie shadows across his ridged face as he began his clearly rehearsed speech. The Galactic Federation Defense Standards Code, Section 342B through 978G, which explicitly mandates that all Class 3 inhabited planets must maintain, at minimum, a triple-layer defense structure. He pointed to various diagrams with increasing intensity. Outer layer, automated early warning satellites with anti-projectile capabilities. Middle layer, orbital shield generators capable of repelling energy weapons of at least Class 7 destruction potential. Inner layer, atmospheric countermeasure systems and ground-based defense batteries. Inspector Queltovac, who had been silently analyzing Earth through the window, turned suddenly. His vertical eyelids blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Admiral, my scans confirm the complete absence of even rudimentary defense measures. Not even primitive missile detection systems. His voice rose to an almost comical pitch. In the last standard cycle alone, 17 planetary systems with inadequate defense grids were subjected to pirate raids. 3 experienced meteor impacts that could have been prevented, and one, I repeat, one was completely subjugated by the Vrax Collective. Maya sipped her coffee, seemingly unbothered. Interesting. And how many of those planets were Earth? Admiral Nul's mouthparts clicked in confusion. None of them were Earth, obviously. Exactly, Maya replied with a wink. 0 out of 17. Pretty good odds, wouldn't you say? This is not a statistical anomaly to be celebrated, Captain, Tovek snapped, his professional demeanor slipping. It is merely luck. Pure, improbable luck. 99.8% of all Federation worlds maintain standard defense protocols, Admiral Nul continued, clearly uncomfortable with Maya's casual dismissal. The remaining 0.2% are either undeveloped primitive worlds or... He paused, searching for the diplomatic term, problematic cases. And which are we? Maya asked, leaning back in her chair with an amused expression. That remains to be determined, Admiral Nul replied coldly. But I must emphasize that compliance is not optional. The Federation Council has authorized immediate sanctions if Earth cannot demonstrate adequate planetary protection measures within 30 standard days. Maya set down her coffee cup with a sharp click against the table. Well then, gentlemen and assorted beings, I suppose we should show you exactly how Earth handles its protection. I promise you've never seen anything quite like it. The inspection team exchanged nervous glances. Something in her tone made Admiral Nul's scales tingle with apprehension. The descent to Earth's surface in an unshielded transport shuttle had Admiral Nul gripping his seat with white-knuckled intensity. His entire team appeared equally distressed, with the exception of Federation anthropologist Liz Tarn, who was furiously recording notes on human behavior. You're telling me, Nul said through clenched teeth as the shuttle experienced mild turbulence, that you travel through your own atmosphere without defensive shields? Daily? Sometimes multiple times a day, Maya replied cheerfully. We call it commuting, though most people don't get the luxury of a shuttle. The craft touched down on a landing pad adjacent to a sprawling complex of buildings. Large letters on the main structure read, Unified Earth Defense Command. At least they have a defense command, Inspector Tovek muttered, seemingly relieved. The delegation disembarked, immediately assaulted by Earth's unfiltered air, rich with oxygen and 1,000 unfamiliar scents. Admiral Nul activated his personal air purifier, while several other team members did the same. Waiting on the tarmac stood a broad-shouldered human male in a crisp uniform adorned with colorful strips of fabric and metallic emblems. He stood perfectly still, back straight, expression serious, the first human they'd encountered who seemed to understand proper military bearing. General Harrison Porter, Earth Defense Forces, Maya announced. "Sir, this is the Federation inspection team, led by Admiral Jorax Nul." The general's stern expression immediately melted into a warm smile. He extended his hand toward the admiral, who reluctantly extended his own four-fingered appendage, still uncomfortable with the bizarre human-touching ritual. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral. We've been looking forward to showing you around our humble operation." Admiral Nul withdrew his hand as quickly as politeness allowed. "General Porter, I must inform you that our preliminary observations indicate catastrophic defense deficiencies that must be addressed immediately." "So I've heard," Porter chuckled. "Let's talk inside. We're having a small ceremony you might find interesting." The interior of Earth Defense Command was a bewildering maze of activity. Demons in various uniforms rushed about with purpose, but none of the standardized organizational patterns that characterized Federation military structures were apparent. "Where are your species segregation protocols?" Inspector Tovak asked, bewildered. "How do you maintain proper chain of command without visual species indicators?" Porter looked genuinely confused. We're all human here. Different countries, sure, but same species." "But some have different skin pigmentation," Tovak insisted, "and varied height differentials." Porter and Maya exchanged glances. "That's just human diversity," Maya explained slowly. "We don't segregate by appearance." The inspection team was led into a large hall where dozens of humans stood at attention. At Porter's signal, a band began playing a cacophony of wind and percussion instruments. Admiral Nul winced at the assault on his hearing organs. "Is this a warning system test?" "National anthem," Porter explained. "Traditional ceremony." "And these colorful cloth rectangles?" Secretary Vizipel asked, pointing to flags lining the walls. "Historical identifiers. Reminds us where we came from before unified Earth." The ceremony concluded with the presentation of medals to several officers. Admiral Nul observed with increasing confusion. "You award medal discs for past accomplishments?" he whispered to Maya. "For exceptional service, bravery, that sort of thing." "But they serve no functional purpose?" "They remind us what we're fighting for," Porter interjected, having overheard. "Speaking of which, I believe you're here to see how Earth defends itself." "Indeed," Admiral Nul replied, regaining his composure, "though I have yet to see evidence that it does." General Porter's eyes glinted with something that made the Admiral suddenly uncomfortable. "Then you're in for quite a surprise, Admiral. Follow me to the command center. It's time we showed you why Earth doesn't need shields." The command center stretched before them, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays, busy technicians, and a massive central projection showing what appeared to be thousands of ships scattered throughout nearby star systems. Admiral Nul froze mid-step. What is this?" General Porter smiled proudly. "This, Admiral, is Earth's defense system." "But these are warships," Inspector Tovak stammered, his vertical pupils dilating in shock. "Attack vessels. Thousands of them." 4,872, to be exact, Porter confirmed, walking toward the central display. "Ranging from rapid strike frigates to our newest Harbinger-class dreadnoughts. We have 714 currently within 12 light hours of Earth, the rest distributed strategically throughout human space and beyond." Admiral Nul's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. This is preposterous. The Federation Charter permits member species to maintain defense forces proportional to their territorial holdings and population. This fleet exceeds your allotment by." He consulted his datapad, 900%. Maya leaned casually against a console. "There's nothing in the Charter limiting offensive capabilities, Admiral. Just defensive ones. We checked. Thoroughly. But why? Secretary Vizipel asked, her tentacles writhing in distress. Why invest such resources in attack vessels instead of protective measures? Porter gestured to a young officer. Lieutenant Park, bring up Historical Battle Analysis 47, please. The central display shifted to show ancient naval vessels on Earth's oceans, then primitive space battles, and finally modern encounters between human ships and various alien craft. Throughout human history, Porter explained, we've operated on a simple principle. The best defense is a good offense. Castle walls could be breached, trenches could be overrun, shields can be penetrated. But if your enemy is defeated before they reach your home, you never have to test your defenses at all. He walked around the projection, gesturing to various ships. The Raptor-class strike cruisers can hit targets 50 light-years away with precision antimatter torpedoes. The Sentinel battleships can disable enemy fleets with our proprietary quantum disruption fields, and the Harbingers. He paused, a hint of pride in his voice. Well, let's just say no hostile force has ever encountered one, and returned to tell about it. Admiral Nul was visibly trembling. This is madness. You've created an armada capable of aggressive expansion across multiple sectors, or capable of stopping any threat long before it reaches Earth, Maya countered. 6 attempted invasions in the past decade, Admiral. None made it past the Kuiper Belt. But what about defensive redundancy? Inspector Tovak protested. What if an enemy bypasses your ships? What if they approach from an unexpected vector? Porter's expression hardened slightly. Then they'd face the most terrifying force in the known galaxy, desperate humans fighting for their homeworld. He brought up another display showing historical Earth conflicts, brutal, chaotic battles where vastly outnumbered forces achieved victory through sheer determination and creativity. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of Stalingrad, the Mars colony uprising. Humans have a particular talent, Inspector. When backed into a corner, we don't surrender. We get creative and vicious. Admiral Nul studied the brutal imagery with a mixture of horror and fascination. Your species spent millennia fighting itself? Practice, Maya said with a shrug. Turns out we're pretty good at it. Your approach violates every established principle of galactic peacekeeping, Nul said weakly. And yet, Porter replied, expanding the galaxy map again to show the human fleet's distribution. In the sectors where our ships patrol, piracy has decreased 93%. Slave trading is non-existent, and not a single colony has been lost to raiders or hostile powers. For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Jorax Nul was completely speechless. Perhaps, General Porter suggested into the uncomfortable silence, a demonstration would be more effective than statistics. Admiral Nul, still reeling from the revelation of Earth's war fleet, managed to compose himself. What sort of demonstration? A war game, Maya said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm that the Federation team found disturbing. Real ships, simulated weapons, your defensive doctrine against our offensive approach. Absolutely not, Inspector Tovak protested. Federation vessels are peacekeeping and diplomatic craft. They aren't designed for combat exercises. Porter raised an eyebrow. But they have those impressive defensive capabilities you've been advocating. Surely they can withstand a simple simulation? Admiral Nul narrowed his eyes. You're baiting us, General. I'm offering you valuable data, Admiral, Porter countered. Don't you want to see if your defense protocols actually work against an unconventional opponent? 20 minutes of heated debate later, the Federation reluctantly agreed to a limited engagement. Admiral Nul contacted the Federation diplomatic cruiser in orbit, arranging for it to participate in what he carefully termed a tactical capabilities assessment. The command center transformed as additional personnel arrived, taking stations around a massive holographic tank that now displayed a section of space near Jupiter. The simulation parameters are simple, Porter explained. Your cruiser, with its full defensive suite activated, will attempt to reach Earth from the Jupiter approach. Our ships will attempt to prevent you. Non-destructive simulated weapons only, of course. Maya added, we've assigned 3 Raptor-class vessels for the exercise. Standard interception package. 3 ships? Admiral Nul scoffed. Against a Federation diplomatic cruiser with full class of defensive shields, automated countermeasures, and point defense systems. This hardly seems fair. To whom? Maya asked with a smirk that made several Federation officials shift uncomfortably. The simulation commenced with the Federation cruiser beginning its approach, its iconic dome-shaped hull surrounded by the soft blue glow of layered defense shields. The 3 human vessels' sleek, angular craft with predatory profiles maintained position near Earth. Diplomatic cruiser Phoenix initiating approach, announced a technician. Defense systems at maximum. Shields layered according to standard protocol. Admiral Nul nodded approvingly. The Phoenix carries our latest defensive technology. Its shields can withstand sustained bombardment from multiple directions simultaneously. Fascinating, Porter said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Raptors acknowledge simulation parameters. They're requesting permission to engage. Granted, Maya replied. What followed left the Federation officials stunned. Instead of approaching directly, the 3 human ships split up, accelerating to velocities that seemed reckless. 2 disappeared from conventional sensors entirely. Where did they go? Tovak demanded. Quantum wake disruption, explained Lieutenant Park. They've matched their energy signatures to the background radiation. The Phoenix won't detect them until they're practically on top of it. The 3rd Raptor, meanwhile, executed a slingshot maneuver around Venus, approaching the Phoenix from an oblique angle that kept Jupiter's radiation interference between them. This is highly irregular, Admiral Nul protested. Standard engagement protocols. Don't apply, Maya finished for him. That's rather the point. On the display, the Phoenix suddenly detected the approaching Raptor and adjusted its shields accordingly, only to be blindsided as the other 2 vessels reappeared simultaneously on opposite vectors. Before the Federation vessel could redistribute its defenses, all 3 Raptors launched what appeared to be tiny projectiles. What are those? Secretary Pell asked nervously. Shield frequency modulators, Porter explained. They analyze shield harmonics and create localized disruptions, an invention born from our conflict with the Araxis hegemony. The Federation officials watched in horror as their supposedly impenetrable shields developed small, precise gaps. Through these openings, the Raptors fired marker beams that, in a real engagement, would have been devastating weapon strikes. Simulation complete, announced the technician. Federation vessel neutralized. Time to successful engagement, 3 minutes, 17 seconds. Silence fell over the command center. That's impossible, Tovak finally whispered. Those shields are rated to withstand attacks from entire battle groups. Conventional attacks, yes, Porter nodded. But humans rarely do anything conventionally. Admiral Nul stared at the simulation results, his professional composure cracking. You outflanked us, blinded our sensors, and exploited shield modulation variances simultaneously. That's not warfare. That's human, Maya supplied. We call it thinking outside the box, sometimes literally. Would you care to try again? Porter offered. Different parameters, perhaps? We have several other tactical packages we could demonstrate. For the first time, Admiral Nul looked at the humans, not with condescension, but with something approaching wary respect. I believe one demonstration has been sufficient, General. Though I admit to a certain professional curiosity. We thought you might feel that way, Maya said with a knowing smile. Which is why we've prepared a series of historical engagements for your review. You might find our solution to the Chronos swarm particularly interesting. As the humans began displaying their military history, The Federation team watched with a growing mixture of horror and reluctant admiration. These weren't the bureaucratic rule followers they had expected to find. These were predators masquerading as diplomats, warriors pretending to be merchants. And somehow, inexplicably, the galaxy seemed safer for it. In the officers' mess hall, the mood had shifted subtly. The Federation team now regarded their human hosts with cautious respect, rather than bureaucratic condescension. Admiral Nul sat across from General Porter, nursing a beverage the humans called tea. "I still don't understand," Nul admitted, his voice quieter than before. "Your technological achievements indicate a cooperative, peaceful society. Yet your military doctrine suggests something else entirely." Porter nodded thoughtfully. "Earth's history isn't like most Federation worlds. We didn't achieve unity through enlightenment or external guidance. We fought our way to it." He activated a small projector on the table, displaying a timeline of human conflicts. The sheer density of wars, battles, and skirmishes made several Federation officials gasp. "For most of our recorded history, humans fought humans," Porter continued. "Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. War wasn't an aberration, it was our natural state." "But why?" asked anthropologist Liz Tarn, genuinely perplexed. "Most species discover cooperation is more beneficial than conflict early in their development." "Oh, we cooperated too," Porter explained. "We built magnificent civilizations, created art, advanced science. Then we used those advances to become better at killing each other." He scrolled through images of ancient weapons evolving into increasingly devastating modern armaments. Every human advancement, metallurgy, chemistry, flight, computing, even space travel, has dual applications. We develop technologies for peace, but we perfect them for war. Inspector Tovek shook his head in disbelief. "Yet you claim to desire peace. This contradiction is difficult to process." "That's because it's not a contradiction to us," Maya interjected. "Humans want peace desperately. We just don't trust the universe to provide it." She stood up, rolling back her uniform sleeve to reveal a jagged scar running from wrist to elbow. 10 years ago, my colony on Tau Ceti IV was attacked by raiders before we had established our current fleet posture. Standard Federation defense grid, top of the line. The raiders bypassed it in under an hour. The room fell silent as Maya continued, her voice steady but intense. "My parents and brother died in the initial assault. I survived by hiding in a ventilation shaft for 3 days, listening to the raiders hunt survivors. When Earth's response fleet finally arrived, only 26 colonists out of 3,000 remained." She rolled her sleeve down. "I joined the defense force the next day. Not for revenge, though I won't pretend that wasn't part of it. I joined because I understood something fundamental. Peace isn't a natural state. It's something you create and protect, sometimes violently." Admiral Nul studied her with new understanding. "And this experience its representative?" "Every human has a story like this in their ancestry," Porter confirmed. "If not personal, then historical. Invasions, occupations, genocide attempts. We remember them all going back thousands of years. It's why we build warships instead of shields," Maya added quietly. "A shield waits for an attack. Our ships ensure the attack never comes at all." For the first time, the Federation officials began to truly understand. Humans weren't contradictory, they were shaped by a history, unlike any other Federation species. Their aggression wasn't mindless, it was born of hard-learned lessons written in blood. The shrill alarm cut through their conversation like a knife. Emergency lights pulsed crimson throughout the command center as personnel rushed to stations with practiced efficiency. "What's happening?" Admiral Nul demanded, watching the sudden transformation of the relaxed human officers into focused combat personnel. General Porter was already striding toward the central command console, his earlier affability replaced by steely determination. We've got an emergency transmission from Federation Outpost Gamma 12, Epsilon Sector. The main display activated, showing a harried Federation official. Static distorted the transmission, and weapons fire could be heard in the background. This is Administrator Vex calling any Federation vessels. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Our defense grid has been compromised. Shields at 27% and failing. We require immediate the transmission cut off abruptly. Epsilon Sector. Admiral Nul's scales paled. That's only 3 light years from here. How many ships do they have stationed there? 1 defensive cruiser and standard orbital grid, Inspector Tovak replied, checking his datapad. Should be more than adequate for standard threats. Porter exchanged glances with Maya, who was already pulling up tactical displays. Any identification on the attackers? She asked the communications officer. Negative, Captain. Energy signatures don't match known profiles. Multiple vessels, at least 7 capital ship class. Admiral Nul watched the humans with growing concern. This was supposed to be a routine inspection, not a combat situation. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. I feel compelled to inform you that Federation protocol dictates we should contact Central Command for instructions before. With all due respect, Admiral, Porter interrupted, by the time your Central Command processes the request, authorizes a response fleet, and deploys it, that outpost will be gone. His eyes locked with Nul's. We can have ships there in 20 minutes. Nul hesitated, caught between protocol and practicality. This is highly irregular, but can you really respond that quickly? Porter didn't answer him directly. Instead, he pressed a button on the console. Red alert. This is not a drill. Raptor Squadron Delta, Sentinel Group 3, prepare for immediate deployment to Epsilon Sector, Federation Outpost Gamma 12. Combat conditions, weapons hot. The response was immediate. Throughout the command center, status boards showed ships transitioning from standby to combat ready. Weapon systems powered up, engines primed. How is this possible? Secretary Pell whispered in awe. You're preparing a fleet response in minutes, not hours. We stay ready, Maya explained, fastening what appeared to be combat armor over her uniform. All ships maintain rapid deployment status. Crews live aboard. Hull integrity, weapons and engines are checked hourly, not quarterly. Porter turned back to Admiral Nul, his expression grave. Admiral, I need your authorization to deploy forces into Federation space for combat operations. Otherwise, I'll have to classify this as a training exercise until we cross the boundary. The bureaucrat in Nul wanted to refuse. Such authorization required forms, approvals, reviews. But the images from the outpost flashed in his mind. Real people under his protection were dying while he contemplated paperwork. You have my authorization, he stated firmly, to the visible surprise of his staff. Save those people, General. Porter nodded once, then turned to Maya. Captain Blackwood, you're taking point on this. Raptor lead is yours. Maya was already moving toward the door. Understood, sir. Launch in 5 minutes. I want to observe, Admiral Nul announced suddenly. If humans are going to defend Federation citizens, I should witness it. Fine, Porter agreed. But understand something, Admiral. What you're about to see isn't a demonstration anymore. This is humans at war. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as humanity prepared to do what it did best, protect its own and now, by extension, its Federation allies through overwhelming force. Admiral Nul stood transfixed before the massive tactical display in Earth's auxiliary command center. General Porter had established a direct feed from Captain Blackwood's Raptor, call sign Artemis, providing a front-row seat to what would surely become a landmark moment in Federation military history. The human vessels had arrived at Outpost Gamma 12 with breathtaking speed, translating from hyperspace directly into combat positions, a maneuver Federation protocols explicitly prohibited due to the catastrophic risks involved. They're going to tear their ships apart, Inspector Tovak muttered. Hyperspace transition requires a minimum safe distance of. Not with our drives, Lieutenant Park interrupted, eyes fixed on her console. Artemis Squadron has successfully deployed, all ships combat ready. Enemy vessels detected 9 capital ships of unknown configuration. The tactical feed showed the outpost's defense grid collapsed, its lone cruiser listing helplessly, venting atmosphere. The attacking vessel's bulbous, asymmetric craft bristling with weapons were methodically dismantling the station's outer ring. Maya's voice crackled over the comm, Artemis actual to all units. Defensive formation Delta 6. Sentinels, establish perimeter. Raptors, prepare for strike package thunderclap. Admiral Nul frowned. Delta 6? Thunderclap? These aren't standard combat protocols. They're not protocols at all, Porter replied, his attention never leaving the display. They're battle plans created specifically for this squadron, accounting for their unique capabilities and crew dynamics. On screen, the 7 human vessels moved with uncanny coordination. The 4 larger Sentinel-class ships formed a loose sphere around the outpost, while Maya's 3 Raptors accelerated toward the enemy formation. What are they doing? Secretary Pell gasped. They're outnumbered. They should be establishing defensive positions, not charging directly at superior numbers. Watch, Porter said simply. The enemy vessels, clearly surprised by the aggressive approach, began to reorient their weapons. Before they could complete the maneuver, the 3 Raptors split apart in a maneuver that seemed choreographed to the millisecond. Maya's voice remained eerily calm. Execute thunderclap on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. What followed defied conventional space combat doctrine. The Raptors cut their main engines simultaneously, triggering what appeared to be controlled explosive charges along their hull sections. The detonations sent them spinning in 3 different vectors, creating chaotic movement patterns while releasing clouds of metallic debris. They've damaged their own ships, Tovak exclaimed. No, Porter corrected. Ablative armor sections, designed to be jettisoned. Creates confusion and sensor ghosts. The enemy targeting systems, confronted with suddenly multiplied sensor contacts and unpredictable movement patterns, scattered their fire ineffectively. Meanwhile, the spinning Raptors unleashed precision weapon strikes from their rotating firing arcs, each ship hitting multiple targets in rapid succession. Artemis to control. Phase 1 complete. 2 enemy vessels disabled. Beginning Phase 2. The Raptors' seemingly chaotic spins suddenly synchronized, their trajectories bringing them into a triangular formation directly in the midst of the enemy fleet. They're surrounded. This is suicide. Admiral Nul couldn't tear his eyes away from the screen. The Raptors' hulls began to glow with building energy. Maya's next command was terse, gravity bomb, deploy. A rippling distortion expanded outward from the 3 human ships, catching the enemy vessels in what appeared to be localized gravitational shear. The attackers' ships twisted grotesquely as space itself warped around them, tearing apart hull sections and weapons arrays. What was that? Secretary Pell whispered. Synchronized graviton implosion, Lieutenant Park explained. Creates a temporary distortion in spacetime. Extremely difficult to execute, requires perfect positioning and timing. As the enemy fleet struggled to recover, the Sentinel ships unleashed a barrage of conventional weapons, systematically targeting the weakened sections created by the gravity bomb. 3 more enemy ships shattered under the assault. Maya's Raptor spun through the debris field, dodging retaliatory fire with what looked like reckless abandon but was clearly calculated precision. Artemis to remaining hostiles. This is your only warning. Power down or be destroyed. The enemy response came in the form of concentrated fire directed at Maya's vessel. Her Raptor took several hits, armor glowing red hot from energy impacts. So that's how it's going to be. Maya's voice had dropped to a dangerous register. Artemis to all units. No quarter. I repeat, no quarter. What followed wasn't so much a battle as an execution. The human ships moved with lethal grace, exploiting every weakness, anticipating every maneuver. Within minutes, the remaining enemy vessels were reduced to drifting hulks. Target the bridge sections only, Maya commanded as they approached the disabled ships. We want prisoners for questioning. Admiral Nul released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The entire engagement had lasted less than 15 minutes. 9 enemy capital ships destroyed or disabled by 7 human vessels, with no losses. This is unprecedented, he admitted. Federation doctrine would have required at least 30 ships for such an engagement, with expected losses of 40%. Porter nodded grimly. Now perhaps you understand why we don't hide behind shields, Admiral. When humans fight, we don't aim to survive. We aim to win. 3 days after the battle at Outpost Gamma 12, Admiral Nul found himself back in the Earth Defense Command briefing room, staring thoughtfully at the reports spread before him. The attack had been orchestrated by a previously unknown species, calling themselves the Krivax Dominion, an aggressive expansionist power that had been systematically testing the Federation defenses for months. So they specifically targeted stations with standard defensive configurations, he mused, looking up at General Porter and Captain Blackwood. Maya's arm was in a medical brace, her only injury from the battle, sustained during the final boarding action to capture Krivax officers. They studied your defense protocols, Porter confirmed. Found the mathematical patterns in your shield modulations, the blind spots in your sensor arrays. They knew exactly how to circumvent every standard Federation defense measure. And yet they had no contingency for encountering humans, Admiral Nul noted, unable to keep a hint of admiration from his voice. Hard to plan for chaos, Maya grinned, adjusting her brace. The Krivax commander we captured was quite vocal about his frustration. Apparently we don't fight properly. Secretary Vizzy Pell, who had been furiously updating her reports, looked up with genuine curiosity. How does one fight improperly? By Federation standards? Porter chuckled. Pretty much everything we do. Our formations are too fluid. Our attack patterns too unpredictable. Our commanders have too much autonomy to adapt tactics on the fly. Admiral Nul nodded slowly. I've been reviewing your combat doctrines. They're unorthodox, certainly, but undeniably effective. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. I find myself in the unusual position of having to reevaluate my entire perspective on galactic security protocols. Inspector Tovak nearly dropped his datapad. Admiral, surely you're not suggesting we adopt human methods. The regulatory revisions alone would take decades. Not adoption, Nul clarified. Integration. Complementary approaches. He turned to Porter. Your offensive capabilities would be even more effective if backed by our defensive technologies. And our defenses, clearly, could benefit from your creative thinking. A cultural exchange program? Porter suggested. Federation officers aboard human vessels? Human tactical advisors at Federation outposts? Precisely, Nul agreed, warming to the idea. Though the paperwork will be considerable. Maya snorted. There's the Federation we know and love. Save the galaxy Monday. File the reports in triplicate Tuesday. Even Tovak smiled at that. Administrative thoroughness is the foundation of galactic harmony, Captain. So Porter asked, what classification will Earth receive in your final report? Still problematic case? Admiral Nul considered for a moment, then made a decisive notation on his datapad. Earth will be classified as unconventionally secured, strategic asset. The first of its kind in Federation records. That's quite the promotion, Maya observed. From regulatory nightmare to strategic asset in 1 week. With the appropriate footnotes and appendices, of course, Secretary Pell added, her tentacles flying over her datapad. We'll need to create 17 new subcategories, amend 29 regulations, and establish a completely new classification framework. How long will that take? Porter inquired innocently. Oh, merely 3 to 5 standard years for full implementation, Pell replied cheerfully. Though with expedited processing and priority authorization codes, the preliminary documentation could be approved in as little as 18 months. The humans exchanged amused glances as the Federation officials began excitedly discussing form numbers and approval chains. Admiral Nul, noticing their expressions, raised what passed for an eyebrow on his reptilian face. Something amusing, General? Just thinking, Porter replied diplomatically, that perhaps there's something we humans could learn from the Federation after all. Oh, Nul seemed pleased. Yes, Maya interjected. How to defeat our enemies through sheer bureaucratic exhaustion. Make them file forms until they surrender. For the first time since his arrival, Admiral Jorax Nul laughed a strange, hissing sound that nonetheless conveyed genuine amusement. Captain Blackwood, I believe that strategy is what we call a last resort. As the Federation team buried themselves in regulatory discussions, Porter leaned over to Maya. Think they'll ever understand us? She watched the aliens with newfound affection. Probably not entirely. But they don't need to understand us to respect us. And respect is a good foundation for peace. Peace through superior firepower, Porter nodded. The human way. The only way we know, Maya agreed, gazing out the window at Earth below, still unshielded, still vulnerable, yet somehow safer than ever. 6 months after the Kryvax incident, the orbital docking bay of Earth Defense Command welcomed a familiar visitor. Admiral Jorax Nul stepped through the airlock with a considerably more relaxed demeanor than during his first visit. This time he extended his hand to Maya without hesitation. Captain Blackwood, or should I say Commander now. Congratulations on your promotion. Maya grinned. Thanks for noticing. How are the reforms coming along? Faster than anyone predicted, Nul admitted as they walked toward the conference room. After 3 more Federation outposts were attacked using the same tactics, even the most conservative council members voted to implement human-inspired response protocols. And how's that working out? The Kryvax haven't attempted an incursion in 7 weeks, Nul replied with evident satisfaction. Though I must say, convincing our captains to execute your thunderclap maneuver has been challenging. Most insist on practicing it at half speed first. General Porter joined them, carrying a ceremonial document case. The official classification paperwork arrived this morning, Admiral. Would you like to do the honors? Nul opened the case, removing an elaborately sealed document. With a flourish that suggested he'd been practicing, he read, Earth is hereby classified as protected by alternative means, with all attendant privileges and exemptions. Only took 17 committee meetings and 32 draft revisions, Porter noted. A new Federation speed record, Nul said without irony. Though I should mention, 3 other species have now applied for the same classification. Maya raised an eyebrow. Copying our approach? Attempting to, Nul admitted. The Tellarites are converting their passenger ships to carriers. The Altair Confederacy is adapting your gravity bombs. Even the Valerians are restructuring their fleet for offensive operations. Imitation and flattery, as humans say, Porter observed. Nul's expression grew serious. There's talk of offering Earth a permanent seat on the Defense Council. Your perspective has become valuable. From regulation violators to policymakers, Maya mused. What's next? Humans running the Federation. That, Nul replied with his now familiar hissing laugh, would require completing Form GS 11498X7, Application for Administrative Authority Transition. And how long is that form? Porter asked. Approximately 7,000 pages, Nul answered. Though I took the liberty of starting it for you. Only 6,998 pages to go. As they shared a laugh, The display behind them showed the latest deployment of the Joint Federation Earth Defense Fleet, a perfect synthesis of human aggression and Federation thoroughness, redefining galactic security one battle plan at a time. Some called it the dawn of a new era. Humans just called it common sense.